Hello there everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video I wanted to talk about every Sith that Luke Skywalker and his Jedi Order had to deal with. Everyone knows about Darth Vader and Palpatine, but there were many more than just those two, so I thought I'd make a list of every Sith they had to fight or encountered. Now those of you who know the expanded universe may feel that some characters are missing. However, this list will be composed of people who are just Sith, not Dark Jedi or any other dark side Force users. So Abeloth, Kronel, Brachus, Den Siva, Kaden, Limarar, Dal Kunner, Desan, Kryus, and many more will not be on this list. I also only included characters that Luke Skywalker and/or his Jedi Order had to deal with. So I didn't include Karn or Jax because neither Luke nor his Order were ever directly involved with him. I'm sure some of you will disagree with some of the characters that I left out, believing that they are Sith, which is totally fine. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, let's get on with the video. So the first two Sith on our list that Luke Skywalker had to deal with were Vader and Sidious. Everyone knows about these two, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about them. Luke fought Vader on several occasions. They dueled about 3 times and had several battles in space. Vader eventually turned back to the light and died on the second Death Star, ending their rivalry. Palpatine and Luke officially met on the second Death Star and again in 11 ABY in the comic series Dark Empire, where it's revealed that Palpatine is back in a new clone body. Luke attempts to defeat him by joining him. Luke and the Alliance work together to fight him until his eventual and final death in the Empire's End comic. Next on our list we have Lumiya, or Shira Bree, as she sometimes went by. Shira Bree was a Force sensitive who joined the Empire at a young age and worked for Darth Vader himself. She eventually went undercover as a rebel pilot, where Luke seemingly felt attraction towards her. While flying a mission one day, Luke opened himself up to the Force, letting it guide where he fired his X-Wing. The Force guided him to fire on Shira without even realizing what he was doing. The accident left her severely injured. When Vader rescued her, she was outfitted with cybernetic parts. She was trained by Vader and used a light whip, which is a very uncommon weapon. After the death of the Emperor and Vader, she tried to kill Luke Skywalker and was eventually defeated, and retreated for the next few decades. She returned in 40 ABY where she helped guide Jacen Solo in his turn to the dark side. She eventually died when she took the blame for Mara Jade's death. Luke, wrongfully believing that she had killed Mara, fought and killed Lumiya. Next on our list is Lumiya's apprentice, Flint. Flint was the son of a Jedi who fought during the Clone Wars. Flint became a stormtrooper in service of the Empire. He was secretly trained by Vader at this time so that he could face Lumiya. After Vader's death, the two fought and he was defeated, becoming Lumiya's apprentice. Flint eventually fought Luke Skywalker and after his stormtrooper shot Luke, was preparing to kill him. However, he was convinced by his childhood friend not to do it. He stopped and destroyed an Imperial machine that was going to decimate a city. He was sent to prison and was eventually killed by Lumiya for betraying the Sith. This next one is kind of weird, but Luke Skywalker sort of fought Darth Maul. This story takes place in Star Wars Tales issue 17, titled The Phantom Menaces. Now, Star Wars Tales comics aren't always 100% canon, so take this story with a grain of salt. Luke Skywalker was sent by the New Republic to the planet Iridonia as an ambassador. While in his room, Luke was attacked by a ghost-like version of Darth Maul. The two fought for a short bit until Luke eventually pushes him away with the Force. Luke noted that he could feel this version of Maul through the Force, and believed that it wasn't a spirit. Luke's investigation eventually leads him to find a man named Drell Kampf, who is in a lab with a brain inside of a tube. He explains to Luke that he recovered Darth Maul's brain and placed it inside of the tube so that Maul could enact his revenge. Luke told him that this was wrong, and turned the power off to the tube that was keeping Maul alive. Next on our list, we have Exar Kun. Exar Kun was a Sith who lived around 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. He was originally trained as a Jedi, however he fell to the dark side after studying Sith artifacts and encountering the Sith spirit of the long-dead Freedon Nod. He eventually started the Great Sith War and waged war on the Republic and the Jedi, and nearly came close to succeeding. However, towards the end of the war, thanks to Jedi such as Nomi Sunrider, he was eventually close to becoming defeated. So, in a last-ditch effort, he performed an ancient ritual attempting to make his spirit live on after death. While he did succeed in making his spirit live on, he was confined to his temple on Yavin 4 for 4,000 years. In one ABY, Exar Kun possessed a group of university students and created the cult of Exar Kun. However, they were eventually defeated and killed by a professor who hired spacers to destroy the cult. Later, in 11 ABY, when Luke Skywalker established his Jedi Order on Yavin 4, Exar Kun began communicating with Ganterus, one of Luke's students. He eventually killed Ganterus after Ganterus attempted to kill him. He then influenced another one of Luke's students, Kyp Durron, convincing him to destroy planets with a superweapon known as the Sun Crusher. He caused Luke Skywalker's body to fall asleep and tried to destroy it using battle hydras, flying creatures that were bred using Sith alchemy. Luke's students eventually banded together and used their wills and the Force to defeat Exar Kun for good. So, I briefly mentioned him earlier, but Kyp Durron was a self-proclaimed Sith who was born in 7 BBY. As a child, his parents were murdered by the Empire and he was sent to work in the mines of the planet Kessel. In 11 ABY, Han visited the planet on a mission and was eventually forced to work in the mines as well. They eventually escaped only to be captured by Imperials who had been stuck in space for the last decade. They escaped Imperial custody with a small spaceship known as the Sun Crusher. It was designed by one of the designers of the Death Star and was capable of destroying planets. Shortly after that, he was trained as a Jedi under Luke Skywalker. Now you know some of the rest. Eventually, he was convinced by Exar Kun to take the Sun Crusher and enact revenge on the Empire. He had an encounter with the Imperials who were stuck in space and then flew to the Cardia system. He ended up destroying the planet, not realizing that his brother was on there until it was too late. He felt awful for what he had done. After Kun's spirit was destroyed, he was convinced by Han to return, and he trained as a Jedi once again. In the following years, he fought to protect the galaxy. He eventually became a Jedi Master, serving on the Council. Next on our list is another Sith spirit, Marka Ragnos. Marka Ragnos was a Sith who lived much earlier than Exar Kun. He was alive well over 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. He was a powerful Sith Lord who lived for over 100 years. After his death, his spirit was trapped in the Valley of the Dark Lords. He influenced the Sith on a number of occasions, one being picking the new leader of the Sith, Naga Sadow. This led the Sith to attack the Republic in the Great Hyperspace War. He also influenced Exar Kun's journey, declaring him the new Lord of the Sith. Years later, a cult known as the Disciples of Ragnos would attempt to revive him in the year 14 ABY. The Jedi Order had to fight them on numerous occasions. Their journey eventually led the Jedi to travel to the planet Korriban, where he possessed the cult's leader. He was defeated by a Jedi named Jacen Solo and sent back into his sarcophagus, screaming that he would return one day. He never did. Up next, we have Vergere, a former Jedi Knight who eventually became a Sith. Now, it should be noted that not every detail about her life comes from the most trustworthy sources. One of Vergere's most famous quotes is, "Everything I tell you is a lie." We also learn a lot about her from Lumiya. Again, not one of the most trustworthy sources. So while we do know many things about her life, take everything with a grain of salt. At some point during her time as a Jedi, she discovered that Palpatine was a Sith Lord. She was forced to flee to protect her life, and eventually came to the planet Xenoma Seacot, a sentient planet. On the planet, she met the vicious Yuuzhan Vong, who were scouting out the planet in order to eventually take over the galaxy. She left with the Vong and over the next 50 years studied and learned from them, as they studied and learned about the Republic from her. At some point, we know that she met with Lumiya, where they discussed who they should turn to the dark side in order to carry on the Sith legacy. They eventually decided to turn Han and Leia's eldest son, Jacen Solo, to the dark side. She eventually met and helped capture Jacen and tortured him, teaching him her own unique philosophies that would eventually lead to his own journey into becoming a Sith Lord many years later. The two eventually returned to Republic space, and skipping ahead a bit, she eventually sensed that Jacen's life was in danger, and she sacrificed herself to save him. She appeared to him after her death for a short while as a Force ghost, which leads many to believe that she wasn't actually a Sith, or maybe turned to the light at the end. We don't really know. Next up, we have Jacen Solo. Jacen Solo's story of becoming a Sith Lord is really unique and one of my personal favorites. As I just mentioned, Jacen Solo is the son of Han and Leia. He was trained as a Jedi by his uncle Luke Skywalker and was incredibly powerful in the Force. Jacen was pure in heart and wanted to do everything he could to help the galaxy and the beings around him. As I mentioned, during the Yuuzhan Vong War, he was captured by the Vong and tortured and groomed by Vergere. When they returned to the Republic, he continued to assist and was instrumental in ending the war. After the war, he traveled around the galaxy studying various Force abilities and skills. While he was studying with a group known as the Mindwalkers, Jacen saw a vision of the future. He saw his daughter all grown up standing next to a dark armored man, who it turns out was the Sith Lord Darth Krayt. He eventually returned to the regular galaxy and assisted in a crisis with the Killiks, an ancient insect species. Years later, he began his slow turn to the dark side. He was met and groomed by Lumiya. She guided him on his journey and convinced him to turn. He believed that it was for the good of the galaxy, and he was helping save it by uniting the galaxy and preventing someone worse from becoming a Sith. This led into the Second Galactic Civil War, where Jacen Solo eventually took control of the Galactic Alliance. Shortly before his death, he saw a vision of his daughter sitting on a white throne, not an evil man in armor. He believed that this meant that he had won and accomplished his goal. He met his demise when he was confronted by his sister, Jaina. Jaina defeated and killed him in a duel. The next Sith on our list isn't one singular Sith, but a whole group of Sith that accidentally time traveled 5,000 years into the future. This next story takes place in 41 ABY and involves a Jedi named Jacen Kun. I mentioned him earlier. He's the one that defeated Marka Ragnos. Jacen was on a mission where he encountered a Sith ship from 5,000 years prior, which had misjumped and traveled through time. The ship was being led by a former Jedi, Rogan, who was in the process of delivering a shipment of dark side or lingon, a powerful mineral that could greatly augment the user's abilities. After they jumped through time, Jacen Kun met another Jedi who had accidentally been sent through time as well, named Relin Drur. Drur was the former master of Rogan. The two briefly worked together before they parted ways. Drur was eventually able to confront and destroy the Sith ship, which is the last we ever hear about it. It's kind of weird. A Sith ship time travels 5,000 years into the future, and it's sort of like a side plot in the story. It's weird. Anyway, another group of Sith I want to talk about is the Lost Tribe of the Sith. Now, instead of naming every single Sith in the Lost Tribe, I'm just going to give you the general overview of them. The Lost Tribe of the Sith crashed on the planet Kesh in 5000 BBY, where they lived and trained for over 5,000 years, hidden from the rest of the galaxy. They also merged with the Keshiri, a native species on the planet. They were eventually found by Ship, a Sith training sphere used in ancient times. They slowly began amassing a fleet and flying on missions. On one mission, several of them met Abeloth, an ancient being who had been secluded from the rest of the galaxy for hundreds of thousands of years. They eventually got her to join them, although this was a ruse for most of the journey. Several of them eventually met Luke Skywalker and his son Ben, who were on their own mission. Some of them ended up teaming up with Luke Skywalker and his son to work together to defeat Abeloth. Now, to make a long story short, as this video is already kind of long, they eventually began working with Abeloth to take over Coruscant. They also took over the Jedi Temple. After some fighting, they were eventually run off from Coruscant. Now, their fate is unknown, as they were still around when the expanded universe was decanonized, so we don't really know what happened to them. Last on our list is the One Sith Order. Now, Luke's order didn't have much contact with his order as a whole. They didn't really come into play too much till about 127 ABY, when they worked to invade the Galactic Alliance. However, several of their members did encounter different members of Luke Skywalker's order at one point or another. I'll talk about a few of them. The leader of that order, Darth Krayt, was born a Tusken Raider on Tatooine, where he was trained as a Jedi by his father. After his father's death, he was taken to the Jedi Temple, where he was trained to be a Jedi under Ki-Adi-Mundi, and then later on Yakuro. He later fought in the Clone Wars and survived Order 66. He returned to Tatooine, where he lived with the Tusken Raiders once again. After an encounter with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he was forced to leave his tribe after he was shamed for having his mask removed. After that, he became a bounty hunter, where he was eventually captured by the Vong and given the same treatment that Jacen Solo would later be given. He left and traveled to Korriban once again. He had been there before when he had attempted to learn a little bit about the dark side. After that, he mostly stayed in the shadows, waiting for the best time to attack. He gathered several other beings such as Lumi Plo, Welk, two former Dark Jedi who were temporarily a part of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order, and Darth Wirelock. Years later, he attempted to undermine the Jedi by using a clone of Jacen Kun. However, that plan failed. Eventually, Luke did encounter Darth Krayt when he came out of hiding to help him fight Abeloth. After she was defeated by the two, he returned into hiding, and we don't know whether or not Luke's Order encountered him again. So that is all the Sith that Luke Skywalker and his Jedi Order had to deal with. It's a lot more than just Vader and Palpatine, and it's one of the reasons that the post-Return of the Jedi era is one of the most interesting times in all of Star Wars, and one of my personal favorites. Let me know what you thought of this list. Were there some you didn't know about? Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and may the Force be with you all.